here's the Mage Guild. Now, in fairness, there are 3 Archmages here. And as often happens when you spend your whole life studying the arcane, they're fucking weird. So you've been warned.
Oh wait, I've had to live next to weird and learn from weird. Okay, I think I can handle it.
You are weird.
Exactly. See what she said.
Well, I'm glad we're on the same page.
I feel like we should go find a wizard who understands enchantments and whatnot to help us figure out what the hell this card. And also probably knows identification stuff. So someone like
well, one of the Archmages might be best to help you with that, but I don't know if you'd want to bother them with it.
Maybe there's a more skilled but less. Maybe let's go to a library. There's got to be a lot of knowledgeable people there, from my experience.
Yeah, as far as I can tell, just about anyone here wouldn't be able to identify it. But I mean,
I say we go look at the library. There's got to be some people there that can help us specifically with this quest task.
Yeah, good idea.
All right, so you guys are heading for the library then.
Yes.
All right, so since none of you know Draconic, not even the wizard, you walk up to this plaque and can't make heads or tails of it. It looks like these weird, angular, segmented runes made up of triangular, almost claw-like depressions, but none of you know what the hell it says.
Get Zarmon on it.
I'm not here.
Oh.
Zarmon was like, I feel disturbance in the ally.
I feel a disturbance in my allies. Good. Good.
He's gonna spite us.
As you guys are just standing there marveling over this plaque, you're kind of taking up a lot of space in the hallway, and 2 students almost run straight into you. One of them's just this normal human-looking dude, but at the lead of the pair is a dragonborn, actually. Blue scales, kind of an ugly big nose that's mostly a horn, with 2 other horns sort of sweeping out from the back of his head, and he looks up at you as he almost runs into you, looks up from his book, and says, "Oh, what are you... You're taking up so much space. What are you doing?"
Oh god, he's British.
Dave looks at the dragonborn and goes, "Well, sorry about that. We have no idea what the hell's on this goddamn planet. What a barbaric language this is. So
you don't speak Draconic?
No. Do I look like a dragon to you?
Of course you aren't. But you appear to be a fellow scholar of magic. How could you not know Draconic?
Yeah. Well, funny thing about that.
Yeah, these here kids are new to the Adventurers Guild and needed to get a few things identified.
Well, then there's not really much of a other place you can go except the High Mages, I'm afraid. Most of your average students, like, myself and my friend here, and he gestures to the human next to him, we are kind of burned through our spells for the day already. We have casting class in the morning, so I'm afraid I can't help you myself.
Yikes. That's cool.
You could always seek some sort of appointment with the High Mages themselves if you needed something identified.
Better not to. I mean, they're busy, man.
Well, that they are, but it is the afternoon. Classes are done for now, and they always say that they have some spare time at this point in the day for students. I don't see why a group such as yourself, especially with another caster in tow, couldn't go and approach them.
You're sure there's no one available other than them?
Yes, quite. You see, even if I, myself, could rest and cast an identify spell for you, I still have afternoon classes to be prepared for, and I have to be able to cast then. It would be something of an embarrassment for me.
One of the High Mages, then. Do you know where one of them currently is?
They would more than likely be in their towers now, just fiddling with a few of their experiments, if I remember correctly.
Could you point us in the direction of at least one of them nearby?
Certainly. And he actually basically tells you the directions to all 3 of the towers. There's basically a giant kind of square structure to the hallways in this place. And if you go to the right and then go south, then you'll go to the High Evoker. If you just head straight to your left on the map, you will head to the High Necromancer, and if you head left and down, you will find the entrance to the High Diviner.
Thank you, Dragonborn. And then Dave gives them a sly wave and goes, "Happy cast."
I apologize for them. They're new in town.
Oh, it's nothing to apologize for. We were all new in town here at some point. If we hung every newcomer, then we wouldn't be here right now.
Don't I know it? Have a nice day, you two.
And to you as well. Take care. And the Dragonborn and his human friend both walk off.
Okay, so which
So High Diviner, High Diviner, Necromancer. Who's the third? What's an Evoker?
Roll a straight intelligence test
Okay.
because you're not trained in Arcana.
All right, here
you're
we
a
go.
wizard? Why aren't you trained in Arcana?
Because I was not a wizard by choice. It's not. It's complicated, man. Okay. All right. So +1. So
He's a dumbass wizard.
yes, D20. 20.
Nice.
18.
Oh, that's right. You've only got like a 13 intelligence, don't you?
Why are you playing a wizard?
He just got bad numbers.
Did you roll your score?
Yeah, I rolled no score.
All right, anyway, so with a 20, you recall somehow, because you were asleep in those classes, you recall that there are 8 schools of magic, and evocation is the school of magic that is
Okay.
related to creating elemental effects and general offensive magic. Like Magic Missile is an evocation spell. Burning Hands is an evocation spell. And maybe even Elin's Create Flame would be an evocation spell, but it's not a wizard spell, so it's not like you could learn it necessarily. But evocation is basically offensive magic.
I think we should go and see the High Mage of the Evocation School of Magic, because I have a feeling that perhaps this rug might have something to do with evocation magic, given how it acted when we were fighting the goblin.
Actually, based on the role that you got and what you know about evocation magic, you would also know that abjuration is kind of the dead opposite of evocation. It helps you resist effects and generally defends you. So the rug would probably be enchanted with an abjuration spell of some kind.
At that moment, Dave smacks himself on the floor and goes, "God damn it, what the fuck would I..." Okay, forget what I said. Not the High Mage of Evocation Magic. We gotta see the High Mage of Abjuration Magic.
There isn't a high abjurer, though.
What?
There's only an evoker, a divinist, and a necromancer.
All right, Evoker it is. Also, and then he turns to Elon. Also, you might be able to maybe I don't know, ask some questions about your control flame, because that's also technically evocation.
Alrighty.
So you guys are heading southeast to the High Evoker's Tower?
Yep, if that's the way, then yeah, because my mind is not gonna.
All right.
Then you guys basically start walking through the hallways of the Mages Guild here, and as you walk, all the students who have just kind of made it out of class for their afternoon lunch break all give you weird looks, because everybody's just kind of in a robe or a tunic around here, and then you guys swing up in armor or, mostly naked or finely dressed, so you guys are kind of a sight.
I'm gonna give them smiles and nods as I pass. Like,
I'm gonna shoot.
carry on.
Dave is gonna shoot finger guns to all of them.
Zarmon is just gonna patiently wait till this his turn.
I'm sorry, man. Like, your turn's coming quickly, but this is kind of a big thing, so...
That's okay.
So you guys basically make it to that end of the hallway where it's basically nothing but a right-hand turn and maybe a couple of doors to what you assume to be classrooms on the far and left wall. You round the corner, following the Blue Dragon's instructions, you make it to the end of that hallway going south, and on your right, kind of at the corner where you would turn right again, there's a door. And entering it, you find yourself in a spiral staircase leading up 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 floors, it seems.
While they're climbing the staircase, because I didn't mean to ask this, Dave turns to Mordecai and asks, "So, I couldn't help but notice, but you have a thing against like mages, and specifically like high mages?"
Not really. I got nothing against mages.
Defensive for a moment there. Back there.
Yeah, nah, I don't have anything in particular against mages.
Because you seem really willing to just like not see one.
Well, like I said, these archmage folks, they're probably busy as hell. I mean, I'm sure they're nice people and they do want to give us a hand. I just,
Because I've seen respect for people's profession before, but this does not look like respect for people's profession.
Look, man, it's nothing. Just drop it.
All right, sure. Just wanted to ask if there's something wrong. That's all. Then they continued their journey.
So as you guys ascend the stairs at the third, the fourth, the fifth floor, and you finally make it up to the top to this small sort of landing or balcony, and as you do, you see on the other side of it there's this brass or like metal reinforced wooden door, and as you make it close to it, you see a flash and a boom. Just hear an explosion echoing from the other side.
You know how I said I don't have anything in particular against mages?
Yes.
That's one reason not to go too near them. Because anyone who could blow things up with his mind and isn't fully in his right mind, that's not a good combination.
Yeah, tell me about it. Some of them can get pretty wacky. But not to fear. As a man of the
As he's
crazies,
holding up his smoke screen.
not to fear. As a fellow man of the crazies, I can handle this. Ooh, crispy.
Just over the course of you talking, you hear another one of those go off.
I bet.
Well, after you guys, you're the ones who wanted to see him so bad.
Hey, don't be a scaredy cat. Jeez.
Hey, Dave, you go first.
Oh, sure, no problem. Dave steps up to the door,
I'm
grips
not
the
scared of anything.
handle, and opens it.
Except
The door is locked.
Oh. Well, he tried opening and failed.
But you also realize that you're holding on to a giant iron knocker, so...
And then he looks at the knockers and goes, "Oh yeah, right. Forgot these are doors like that." And then he uses the iron knockers to knock on the door.
Just a moment!
Dave freezes in place for a moment and goes, "Oh my god, my ears."
And as you freeze there, you you hear from the other side of the door what sounds like the room settling, just furniture just falling back into place after the explosion. And you hear the soft, like, of small feet walking up to the door, and then just the sound of multiple locks and latches and security features being undone. And then there's just a slight flash as the door also becomes disenchanted, and then it opens. The first thing you see is a very utilitarian but still very well furnished personal library of sorts that's been utterly blasted to pieces. There's been tables pushed off to the side, beakers spilled all over them, books scattered around them. The center of the room is just this scorch mark. It's marked with just this big black mark of soot. And for a moment, you wonder who was behind the door before you look down and you see a gnome with big black goggles on his face staring up at you.
Dave
This
mentally,
is what it's like to be tall.
Dave mentally contemplates to himself, a wizard gnome. Well, that's a first for everything, I suppose.
The first thing you notice about this gnome is that his clothes, while they should be of a very nice make and of a very almost regal sort of style for a high mage, they are torn and blasted and burnt into a barely recognizable state. The gnome himself takes his goggles off and looks up at you from beneath a shock of red hair and peers up at you with his big blue eyes.
Dave points at the outfit and goes, "Practicing a new, casting some spells, sir."
Of course, I'm experimenting here, obviously. Onwards and upwards and all that good stuff. Roll a perception test, Dave, and anybody else looking at the gnome for that matter.
Oh, oh no.
Oh no.
No.
You see-
Okay, perception.
Dave doesn't
correction.
notice jack shit. Dave,
Yeah, I got a 7 total.
Bram is the one that notices, but we don't.
I was half asleep for the conversation.
And then there's Zarmon on the other side of the map. He's like, imagine Zarmon notices.
I was like, ugh. I felt like Dave said something stupid again.
That's all the time.
And it looks like all of you are looking down at this gnome and you're like, man, crazy gnome. Fiery red hair, soot covering his face and all that. But Bram is the only one who notices from the back of the group why the gnome seems so weird with his goggles off. And it's because he doesn't have any eyebrows. It's likely they've been singed off in some of his experiments or something along those lines.
From all the way up there, he just looks down at this 3-foot guy and he's like, "This man doesn't have eyelashes. I'll
How
the
does he know
irony
when
is,
to blink?
the
call the
irony is,
police."
actually, wait,
Isn't he wearing goggles?
do orcs have
Oh
eyelashes?
wow.
Oh yeah, orcs have eyelashes.
Really?
Hmm.
I've never. What about half orcs?
Half orcs too, probably more so because they're at least half human.
Okay.
We have beautiful eyelashes, thank you.
So why have you interrupted me? What can I help you with? In any case, be quick about it. I have work to get back to.
Dave points to Bram's carpet and also the scrolls that he has in inventory and goes, sorry to be of a bother. We won't waste too much of your time. Hopefully, we've come here wondering if you can identify what this item that my compatriot over here has slung over his shoulder like a cape is, because it seems to be magical in nature.
Oh, well, that's unfortunate. You seem to have caught me at a bad time. You see, I've already prepared all my spells for the day, and I wasn't expecting to identify anything. I was going to be doing some experiments with fire and all that, so I'm afraid I'm not prepared for this exactly.
That's what I said.
What did I say were the colors of all the scrolls again? The ribbons?
They were lime, gold, and something else. Lime,
Purple.
purple. Yeah, there we go.
That's right. Okay. So then, as you guys are holding basically like showing these items that you want him to figure out, he kind of takes a look at them and says, "Might I see that scroll right there?" And he points to the lime green one.
Sure. Dave hands the scroll over.
He takes the scroll and starts reading it, and he, undoes the ribbon, opens it up, and is looking at it and says, yes, I can't decipher this script. Regrettably, I'll have to use an identify spell. But I haven't had any of those prepared, so it's going to take time to cast, and it's going to take time out of my day that I could be better using on other experiments, so I'll need to be compensated for my work, I'm afraid. I think considering all of these items, it would be fair to say 50 gold for identifying each of the scrolls and 100 for the rug.
At that moment, Dave's eyes, like metaphorically crack.
Alright.
He sees the look on your face and looks a little cross and says, "Well, what did you expect? I was going to be doing my own work today. I wasn't expecting anybody to come in asking for identification. Those are the prices I've set. You're wasting my time
Look,
here."
that's what I said, but these guys didn't want to listen to me.
At that
They're
moment,
archmages.
Mordecai and goes, "What the hell?" And goes, "What the hell do you mean about freaking expensive payment? Bullshit."
What on earth do you expect? I'm an evoker. I deal with destruction. I deal with powerful magics. I have to always have equipment on hand, and maybe I need things I need money in order to replace some of the equipment that breaks." And as he says that, you see one of the shelves in his library behind him gives way, and the books just tumble out onto the ground. And he looks back and he points at the wreckage that his laboratory's become, and he says, "See? So I'm very sorry that if you cannot acquire my services, you're going to have to speak to my colleagues, either the High Necromancer or the High Divinist."
Dave gives a nod and says, "That's fine. Thank you for your brief time, I guess."
Of course, the High Evoker Satorionum Ivnivizetium Blindstrom always helps the folk one way or another.
Dave gives a nervous laugh and goes,
Did I just have a stroke? What language was?
Bram says too many words.
Have a nice day.
You two, now out, go! I have things to blow up and things to do. And he starts ushering you out of his room, even as an empty beaker that was on the edge of one of the tables behind him loses its balance finally and crashes to the ground. He pushes you out the door, and all the locks and the enchantment gets back put back together.
Well, he was pleasant.
very explosive. And expensive, like holy shit. Alright, so who wants to visit the Necromancer?
Please, no.
Well, I'm sure I was only visiting the Diviner.
What? Why?
Divinator?
Something about Seers always rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Alright, Necromancer it is.
Okay, Meanwhile, Zarmor. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun.
Batman, it's like the Batman like transition, like normal. So where is he? I can't
He's
find
at
him.
the leather goods shop just north of the Nymphswell Tavern.
Someone just like stops for a second, like, ugh, I feel like I've been standing here for ages. Someone just like slowly steps in, like, yeah, do you have any bows that can deal some serious damage?
The shopkeeper, I think his name was Brian, I said last time, looks up and says, "Oh, hey, you're back. I mean, we got plenty of bows. Short bows, long bows, normal stuff, more normal hunter's equipment, but it looks like you already got something like that there, huh?"
Unless you have anything better to offer.
He kind of gives you a sidelong look and says, "I mean, I got some personal projects, but
Well,
how... You fancy yourself a decent hunter?"
I would like to believe so.
Oh, really? Well, what have you hunted then?
Oh, well, let's see. Bears, cougars, owl bears,
Owl bears? He gives you a very credulous look.
Oh, I allowed to say
You
that.
can say whatever you want, but owl bears are a bit above your pay grade. Roll a deception test if you want.
Sure. Wait, let me
Ooh,
check.
interesting.
Actually, let me check my deception. Deception.
Lie.
I'll lie. I'll deceive. I will
Ooh,
deceive.
got a bad boy over here.
Ooh, he doesn't buy that shit.
Dude. What shitty lie did you use?
No,
He squints at you and says, "I've never heard of any owl bears being anywhere around this far north.
I wasn't up here. So somewhere.
Somewhere else, huh?" And he doesn't look like he believes you, and he says, "I'm sorry, I hate to break it to you, but you look like a literal greenhorn over here, and aside from the bows I got on the wall, I got nothing for you. Wait, you have an animal trophy in your inventory, don't you?"
Yeah, you should.
Do
Your
I?
inventory.
Where's my inventory?
Is that not like when you're starting equipment pieces?
Yeah, it is. It is. I know because I
Ah.
had it in inventory once, and yeah, it's the trophy animal thing is there.
Where is it?
Look at your document, dude.
I am looking at my document.
Go down, keep going down, and you'll see your inventory. It's I believe it is the third.
What is it? Yeah, I don't have a trophy on it.
Really?
In my,
You don't.
You
I
should.
feel like I should.
I have a trophy with an animal.
you should.
Animal. It's under adventuring gear, right? Or no, it's all under.
Yeah, I don't have it. I was never.
On the right.
Alright.
Yeah.
What
You're
am
looking. I think you're looking under backpack, but you should be looking on your right.
I'm looking at adventure.
Yeah. You should.
It
Okay.
should be on the. It should be in the column close to your money in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got traveler's clothes, staff. I got staff.
What?
Hunting. Oh yeah, trophy of an animal.
There we go.
There.
Okay.
All right, hang on. Let me roll to see what that is, actually, for the purpose of this.
I hope it's good.
Big number, big number. Oh! It's a rat skull. You have a rat skull in the inventory.
All right,
Oh,
so with a number that high, probably not something off an owl bear,
Yeah.
but you've definitely hunted a mountain lion of some sort, and you've probably got something to the effect of, like the canine of a saber-toothed cat or something along those lines as your animal trophy.
Alright, I kind of put it on the table in front of him, like, hunt this little bad boy south of here. He put up quite a fight, but at the end it only took a arrow in each eye and one knife at his throat to take him down.
Brian stares at the tooth and kind of leans over the counter to get a better look at it and goes, "That looks like a genuine mountain lion's fang, all right. Huh.
You seem surprised.
Well, it's just that we don't see a lot of those here," and kind of gives you a look, reappraising you, and says, "Come into the back. I think I might have something for you. And he leads you to the door behind the countertop, which you
Okay.
assumed led to an office of some sort where he, like, you know, keeps, where he does, like, his finances or something like that for a shop. But it's actually a combination workshop and shooting range that extends the rest of the length of the building from the far left of it to the far right, as you can see on the map.
Okay.
And in it, when he's in it, he pulls out there are several actually items on the workbench, some freshly made bows with strings, and he takes one of them off the walls. And the way bows normally work is there are a piece of straight wood, and you tie the string to both ends, and you put it under tension that way. And it's usually some sort of flexible, really flexible wood to allow it to do that. He has a bow in here that he picks out that looks like it's made of a much less flexible material, deer antlers, and he shows it to you and says, "Little project I've been working on. Found that if the curve already exists, then the arrow kind of flies harder. Want to give it a, what do you think?"
I would like to examine
It
it.
looks like a fine piece of work. He's basically turned a hunter's trophy into something practical, and as a bowman, it occurs to you that he might be right. The draw on this might be much harder than for a regular bow, but this could definitely pack a punch, like if you fired it.
Oh shit, Melon's becoming Hawkeye.
Can I test it out?
Of course you can. And he gestures down the range, and it occurs to you now that this is a firing range, and at the end there's this giant straw bale with a target, like a painted skin stretched on it with a bullseye. You draw back and fire, and the draw is heavier than a normal bow, but it's not that heavy, and you just drive an arrow, boom, right into the target, and Brian looks at you and says, "That might be a bit small for your strength, actually. Hang on."
A little small. Wow.
He goes around the back of the door and brings out a bow that appears to be made of moose antlers instead of deer. He hands you an arrow, and you test it again, and you have to draw really hard. It tests your strength, but you fire it, and it boom, sinks in almost to the feather tip on the end of the arrow into the target. This is a good bow.
Is that one that just like looks at the arrow? Like, must have how the little elf felt like.
Brian is standing there behind you, nodding with satisfaction. He says, "Sadly, I can't exactly test these myself. Got to run the shop, you know, but I'd love to see how they work out in the field."
How about this? I will test out the weapon for you. Like, you give me the weapon, I will get out there, I will use it, like, I will test it out, and whatever I find, if I find any problems with it, if I find anything with it, I will report to you.
That would be awesome. If I could make more of these, and they work better, then I could net myself some better profits with just better bows. Thank you so much for this. Meanwhile, back at the Mages Guild, you guys are walking to the one of the other two offices, right?
Yeah. As the walking is going, Davis is looking at Mordecai and asking, "Hey, hey Mordecai,
Yes, Dave.
random thought. If somebody took bowstring and put it between my horns, how good a bow would that make?"
It would make a pretty poor bow, I think. I think a decent slingshot, though.
Huh? Interesting idea.
It would also hurt.
Yeah, I know, but
Actually, can you
Just a thought.
feel through those horns, or are they just like teeth sticking out of your forehead?
nah, they're more like horns. They're not. They're not gonna.
Well, I've never had horns, so I
There's
wouldn't
a
know.
little one-on-one education. There's no nerve endings on the bottom part. So if you remove my horns, I probably wouldn't know they're gone.
All right, really quick. Everybody who's in the Mages Guild, roll an intelligence or a wisdom test, whichever one's higher.
Doesn't make a difference to me, man. It's the same. It's the same bonus.
Let me see
Oh.
wisdom.
I got -1, so nope.
I got an 18 plus 3.
I got 6.
I got a bow.
Well,
Oh, I have wisdom plus. I got +1 to wisdom.
Wait a second. The barbarian has a positive wisdom score?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
I had high stats. I rolled high stats. Like,
He's the wisest barbarian you've ever met, too.
why do you think I was doing taxes?
It baffles me that the barbarian is somehow wiser and more intelligent than the wizard of the party.
He's just like,
Writing only way.
Wasn't good enough.
he's just like,
Why do we rip and tear until it is done?
he's just like, is there another way aside from fighting people? Like, why do we have to always fight people? Why can't we just, I don't know, read a book, you know? Like, settle down, have a family, go to an office, work, do a job.
Share a beer. Bram one village, Bram one a village.
That's been like,
Ram want wholesome elf life in Wheatfield.
So Mordecai, Elin, it occurs to you that you don't know whether or not either of these guys are going to be able to identify these, and maybe you can just save time one way or another by splitting up, taking one, or like taking the scrolls to one of the mages and the bearskin to another, and just seeing who can identify it, and just kind of saving time that way.
Hmm.
Problem is,
Okay.
you can't have the items in both groups at the same time.
unless Dave goes with someone else and then Bram goes with somebody else.
Well, no, or Bram can give 2 of the items to one person who's going to the other teacher man
Mhm.
We have
person.
No, Dave, you're holding the scrolls.
Yeah.
Oh, whoever has the scroll.
Yeah, so I go with Mordecai, and then Elin and Bram go to the diviner.
Sounds
So
good.
Elin and Bram are taking the rug to the High Diviner, while Mordecai and Dave are taking the scrolls to the High Necromancer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Alright.
that's good.
kill 2 birds with 5
We're
stones.
off.
I'm offended.
All right, then let's start with Dave and Mordecai heading to the Necromancer. You guys basically go back the way you came. Instead of continuing down the central hallway deeper into the Mages Guild, you basically go opposite the direction you first went. It takes the Evoker to get to the doorway leading to the staircase that leads up to the Necromancer's Tower. And sure enough, it goes up 3, 4, 5, 6 stories, and you're starting to get tired of this. Hopefully you only have, this is the last time you have to, do this. Otherwise, if you have to take this to the High Diviner, you might go nuts.
Killer loot workout, though.
However, as you guys ascend the tower, you start to feel very cold. As you're getting higher up into the rungs, especially past the 3rd floor, there's a very noticeable chill in the air until you're up at the top staring cold at a black and iron-bound wooden door.
Dave thinks to himself, yeah, just like every, this is just like all those weird gothic girls who were necromancers, always giving people the cold shoulder, literally.
As you guys are standing in front of the door, you realize that unlike the enchantment that was on or the assumed enchantment that was on the High Evoker's door, you can clearly see runes carved into the wood and iron of this door.
Hey, look, Mordecai, there are glyphs, says Dave as he points at the glyphs like a bright-eyed child.
Remind me how old Dave is?
He's like, what, I think past 20?
Okay, so he's actually older than Mordecai. Hey,
How old
Yeah.
is Mordecai?
like 20.
How old is my character? Guys, how old am I?
5 years old.
That's something you should ask your mother. I'm gonna unholster my my mace and use it to knock on the door.
All right, you knock on the door with your mace, and for about 5-10 seconds, you don't hear anything on the other side. You go to knock again, when suddenly one of the doors opens, and you can see and feel the cold mist that is the interior of the room just flow out and sink towards your feet and drift off the balcony behind you. And through the mist peers an elven face, the face of an elven woman, actually, with hair that is far more gray and less lustrous than an elf's has any right to have, falling past her ears, behind her ears, and she looks very aged just looking at her face. Like she's got crow's feet, prominent enough crow's feet to see on a human. As the mist fades, you all of a sudden realize, oh God, she's not wearing any clothes. Oh, please, Lord, no.
What?
and you,
Dave looks away.
Whoa.
yeah, and it's
Hello.
especially disconcerting because compared to humans, elves are perpetually lean and fragile looking, and with age, she's just lined with veins that show through from underneath corpse-like skin, and just seeing that all in front of you is just kind of a lot to take in. And she gives you a placid look as the mist drifts out from around her and says, "Yes, children?
Hello.
How rude.
Did you need something?"
Well, my friend Dave here, and I have some. Uh, we have some magic items that we needed to get looked at, and unfortunately, nobody was available. So we were referred to the higher ups here.
Yes, says Dave.
Despite my advice to the contrary.
Dave simply waves Mordecai off as though he's crazy.
Very well. Come on in then. And she turns and steps inside, mercifully.
Dave gulps, he goes, and thinks while also like double crossing one of his fingers. Please don't make it. Please don't make it. Please don't make it.
You step in, and though it's dark, you look over and damn it, granny ass. And it's that weird thing where it's like you're watching a train wreck. Like you can't help but look at it, but at the same time you're horrified at it. And just looking at how like stretched the skin is and how like the dark veins running underneath it, you want to look away, but
Okay,
you're just
guys, you guys are being rude to this lady.
the muscles show through her skin, and it's striated, almost like just the skin stretched over it in a way that
She almost like a walking corpse.
Yes, exactly. Just a veiny, stretched skin, thinly muscled corpse.
As a
basically.
necromancer, it's likely she is a walking corpse. But we don't know that.
I didn't need the phrase veiny in my life. But thanks for that.
Her bosom looks like a roadmap to Stockholm. My God.
God damn it.
Dave mentally thinks to himself, "Oh God, this is
The
probably
New York subway system.
even worse than the torture that they would have put me through." Oh God!
With a wave of her hand, the High Necromancer conjures a mage hand, not too dissimilar to your own, Dave, but far more ragged and corpse-like and rotten-looking in its spectral quality, and it flies off to some corner of the room and brings over a looks to be a grayish, silvery night robe, like made of silk or lace or some sort of light fabric, and it comes over and helps drape it over the High Necromancer's shoulders. It occurs to you, you have no idea how somebody this thin and this weak-looking can, like, exist in an environment this cold.
All the while, Dave mutters so that he mutters in a way that like nobody hears him, but he just goes, "Part of me just doesn't want to."
As you walk in, a skeleton approaches you. For a moment, when you walked in, you thought it was just some sort of anatomical model of a skeleton, but it's an actual animated skeleton, and it walks up and it holds its hand out to you, to both of you.
Dave lends a hand.
You just put your hand in the skeleton's hand?
Yes.
Okay, you're holding the skeleton's hand now. Nothing happens.
I'm gonna grab his hand.
Oh, stupid.
Maybe it wants something. Maybe you put something in it. Wait, it's a coat hanger.
The scroll, dumbass.
Oh.
What? Oh, right. The scroll, right.
Don't bother with Byron, the necromancer says over her shoulder, and you turn and look, and with a robe on, she's going to get into a chair like her bones are made of glass, just really slowly.
Her skin is made of paper.
Our bones are made of.
And as you guys walk towards her into the barely lit room, you see her from the front angle again, and fuck. She hasn't done up the front of her robe. You can still see the like collarbone almost piercing through the skin.
All of Dave wonders, are all necromancers exhibitionists?
I'm not gonna lie, this elf is channeling the spirit of every retiree who's at the point in their life where they just don't give a fuck what these young people think anymore.
Dave gulps and just thinks, "Oh dear God."
As you guys walk in, her laboratory is this near lightless room, structured very similar to the gnomes, but the shelves are stacked with books, but also just jars upon jars of preserved specimens. Some very well preserved, full of eyes or limbs or even heads. Others, this mess of, you don't even know what's in some of them. It's going to take you a week in spelunking equipment to identify whatever the hell's in there.
So Dave and Mordecai, I guess, walk towards the High Necromancer and give her the scrolls, and be like, "So we got a couple scrolls that I can't read. None of us can, and it'd be nice if you could." Yes.
As you're telling her this, you watch as she lazily just extends her hand, and her mage hand goes and floats up to a shelf just up and to the right, and it grasps onto two things: a wand and a jar that looks like it's full of some sort of pickling vegetable. Looks like gherkins or pickles. And the hand lazily brings it back down as you speak.
Oh God, she's gonna eat it. Eat those things, thought Dave.
She takes the jar in her hand, instructs the mage hand to crack open the metal seal on top, twist off, and she holds out the jar of what's very obviously just pickles to you.
Dave eyes the snack and says politely, "Oh no, thanks, I'm good. Thank you for offering."
Her gaze turns to you, Mordecai, and she just kind of puts the jar at an angle towards you.
No, thank you.
All right, with both of you refusing her offer, she brings the jar to her lips and throws her head back, to your horror, to take a massive swig of the pickle.
Of course.
And she just slams it back down on the table.
Good for her. Okay, take that for someone who just chugs, eats spoons full of olives. Okay, that shit is good.
As Dave, no doubt, reels back in horror and just kind of looks away while trying to remain polite, you see that off sort of to the back right side of this library, there's a doorway leading to another room, and through that doorway, archway more like, you can see that there's a metal slab of a table with what looks like a figure waiting beyond it, standing, and something, a humanoid figure under a cloth upon that table.
As Dave's eyes around frivolously, he thinks to himself, "Jesus Christ, this entire place is just horrible to look at. Everywhere my eyes move, it just gets weirder and weirder." No, my eyes frantically look around, trying to find something less pleasant to look at, but everything just progressively becomes.
He's looking for something less pleasant to look at.
Yeah, but
and the High Necromancer wipes her mouth with the back of her hand, very delicately, oddly enough, now of all times, and she sets the jar off to the side and looks at the two of you and says, front of her robe still not done up, she just doesn't give a shit about that anymore. "So, these are the scrolls that you need identified," and as her face is moving, you can just see the tensing of muscle and everything through the skin, and it's just like, even looking at her face just as she speaks is kind of
Good
gross.
grief. Everywhere I look, it just gets worse and worse. It's like a roller coaster.
I just close my eyes and try to look serene and inward thinking.
Needing nothing else from you, the High Necromancer takes the first scroll, the scroll with a sort of lime greenish band holding it together, and takes the wand that her mage hand gave her from the higher shelf and presses it against it, and you see some light flow from the wand slowly into the scroll, and then slowly back up into the wand and up the High Necromancer's arm. Over the course of a minute, she does this, concentrating on this scroll and just gently breathing, and eventually she opens her eyes and says, "This is a scroll of grease."
Took you a while there. Dave takes it back and pockets it.
With that, she takes the second scroll, the one with the purple band on it, and does much the same treatment. Places the wand against it, light goes from the wand to the scroll, sits in there, pulls back out, and pulls into the High Necromancer's body before she, over the course of a minute, and then she opens her eyes and says, "This is a far more interesting spell. This is a scroll of fairy fire."
Pockets it again.
Alright, and with that, she takes the last scroll, the one with the gold band on it, and gives it the same treatment, only this time you see halfway through, as the light flows from the scroll through the wand and into her hand, the High Necromancer's brow furrows and a restrained expression of stress, pain, something along those lines crosses her face.
Dave raises a brow, thinking, "What's going on there?"
When she completes the spell, which looks like a fairly uncomfortable process for her, she looks up at you and says, "This is a very odd scroll indeed. It is neither a wizard nor any kind of arcane caster spell. This is a scroll of wrathful smite. This is the kind of thing that you would find upon a cleric or a paladin. It allows you to channel the energies of the divine into a single strike of your weapon. I do not understand how there could possibly be a scroll of this, but here it is. Would either of you two happen to be of a holy persuasion, then?"
I'm not very religious myself.
I don't believe in God or gods, said Dave.
Then you will likely not be able to find any use in this. I would recommend finding a holy man of some sort and selling it off to them. Neither of you will be able to cast this if I have hedged my bets, right?
Yeah, that's an idea I can get behind.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. I'm glad to have been of aid. And she stand up, and you guys stand up with her quickly so you don't see anything.
Just her face, that's it. Don't look anywhere else.
She looks at both of you in turn and says, "I am pleased that the talents that are found in these old bones could be of service to you."
Yes.
Dave gives a sheepish nod, thinking, "Oh, they were of use, all right, but to whom I cannot say."
Okay, let's go.
Dave nods. Yeah, good idea.
As you both leave, roll perception.
Okay. My perception is what? -1, right? Check. Perception and -1. Okay. Well, time for Dave to be a unperceptive schmuck. Yep, there we go.
My perception is just a +3. Yeah, I got a 17 this time. Huzzah.
Then, as you both leave the High Necromancer's chamber, being escorted out by Byron the Skeleton, who, rather disturbingly, gives you a very creepy wave from the closing door, only Mordecai hears the soft sound of a light robe falling to the ground as he leaves. And with that, the door, boom, closes behind you.
Well, yeah. I have never been softer in my life.
What the fuck?
No, that's not true.
Dave looks at Mordecai and says, "Dude, I have seen all manner of necromancers. That woman was... I no words. No words, just a robe. No words."
I think you need an necromancer to bring her
I
back.
need
I need a bar.
a
You
drink.
need a drink to forget.
I need a bar. And some powdered bliss.
Yeah, well, let's meet the others downstairs.
All right, in marked contrast to the horror that Mordecai and Dave just went through, Bram Eland, as you ascend the southwestern tower to speak with the High Divinist, you can hear the faint sound of music drifting from the top. And very lively music, the kind of music you remember hearing down when you're at the Nimswell Tavern. And as you make it to the uppermost balcony where the door is, the doors are wide open, seemingly letting you into the room beyond. And since the way you're ascending, you're kind of coming up to this doorway from around a corner, you can see filtering from the outside, from the other side, there's sunlight and the faint smell of something nice like a tea brewing.
I'm just going to knock to be respectful. Let me go.
From inside you hear, "Come in, I've been expecting you all day."
Then.
All right.
Then you guys enter the High Divinist chambers, and you haven't seen the High Necromancer's chambers, but for the sake of comparing the three out of character knowledge, it's a combination of the other two, where there is the sort of laboratory-like, business-like, very utilitarian structure of the Necromancer's high tower, it's combined with the open air, open space sort of feeling of the High Evoker's Tower. You walk in and there are bookshelves on the sides, just lined with books and all sorts of trinkets. More metallic, more constructed objects, as opposed to, you know, some of the brining things that were in the Necromancer's Tower, which you haven't seen. But the windows are all thrown open, and in the center of the laboratory on the far side, there is a massive telescope sticking out of a hole in the roof and staring into the noonday sky. And all throughout the lab, you see series of tables with just laden with books and all sorts of strange machines and map-making tools and just all manner of arcane components, gemstones, dried herbs, components that don't make sense to you, candles with strange runes inscribed into them. At the far end of the room, instead of there being a series of maybe 2 or 3 layers of bookshelves, there's actually a rack of various staves and rods just standing there awaiting use. And in the middle of all this is a younger man than you were expecting, probably in his early 20s, a human man with this crazy mop of light brown hair and kind of this smattering of facial hair that's actually been tied into a relatively neat braided goatee, which is strange considering the mess of a mop of hair that is on top of his head. And he looks to you with these hazel-colored eyes that seem to just pierce into you. Like, he just glances up at you and then looks back to his work where he's adjusting something, like a looking glass on a map of some sort. And that's when you notice that he's not dressed as ostentatiously as other wizards, where even some of the students had some nice gilding on their robes, and even the High Evoker's clothes in the sort of ruined state they were in, they looked good. This guy is just wearing a simple, almost roughly woven kind of material. He straddles the line between being a high mage and just looking like a monk in burlap robes, that sort of thing. And as he's looking back down at his work, he says, "Your little trip to the mines went well, then?"
It went very well.
"As I foresaw. That is good. I've been watching you ever since you came to town, you know." And he gestures off to one of the centerpieces in his room. In the central table, you see on a little stand, there's a crystal ball standing there with just mist swirling in it. And without looking up at you, he says, "In fact, I've been foreseeing a meeting like this for quite some time. I'm glad that you finally decided to start moving those legs of yours and came to me. Regardless, give me just a moment and have some tea while you're at it. I just brewed some for you." And you guys look over just kind of off to the right where he gestures, and there is a tea set there with a nice steaming pot of tea that appears to be moving on its own. Like there's just some disembodied, both of you kind of see it. There's a shimmer in the air just in front of it, as if there's some sort of like barely visible crystalline or like gaseous figure in front of the tea set, just like picking up the spoons and picking up the teapot and pouring the tea, which is this wonderful amber color, and it smells faintly of barley and vanilla, even from this distance. And this unseen servant of the High Divinist pours some cups of tea and brings 2 of them over on little saucers for you. You've had quite enough of a day already.
You have no idea.
I've been watching you ever since you came to town. I saw most of what went down in the mines, so I have some idea. And with that, he writes some final note on the map before turning to face you directly and speaking to you.
Bram takes the rug out of his pack and kind of just drops it on the table with a thud.
And with that gesture, the High Divinist takes no time, clearing aside some of the more delicate materials so that he can basically get this whole bear rug laid out on the table, and he does a few small gestures and mutters an incantation and puts his hands on the rug, and you see the light flow from his body into the whole bearskin before it filters back up into his hands and into his body, and he raises an eyebrow curiously. "This is certainly exactly what you think it is. It is a bearskin of resistance. Anybody standing upon it will have resistance to most physical attacks unless there's a being hostile to said user standing upon the rug as well, in which case the enchantment will simply cancel out. It is a very strange, very podunk, I suppose would be the word, enchantment, because, well, it has the one obvious weakness, and then of course it's importable. You can't bring it around, and the only real way to use its enchantment is to lay it out and stand on it, which is an easy way of turning yourself into a pincushion in any sane fight.
Bram shakes his fist in cold fury.
Yes, sadly this enchantment is of no use to you yet.
Not yet, okay.
Yet?
Not yet, because I know you want this to be changed. I know that you are going to ask me to change it if I can, and indeed I can. I can remux the enchantment, as it were, so that you can carry it around with you and still gain some benefit from it, but it will be a shadow of this form that you've brought to me.
Oh, why don't you put like make it into boots?
You're not here, man. You can't contribute.
Get away.
Well, that's a good idea.
Yeah. You can't hear this conversation.
No, I'm just speaking out loud. Sorry about that.
He's not actually in this episode. Do we still have to pay him? Yeah, fair enough.
Oi, Mike, who you calling not in this episode? I bloody oughta hammer your head in with a hammer.
Well, what can you do with it?
Well, essentially what I can do is I can modify the enchantment so that it uses less magic and activates based on a different set of circumstances. In this case, rather than standing upon it and receiving quite a fortuitous boon, you would have a more continual method of coverage, and it would be portable, but it would be weaker. Sadly, magic is a little finicky like that. It is something I can do if you are willing to compensate me for my work, because it is rather difficult.
How much are
How much?
you asking for?
Based on the amount of time and materials I would need, it would take me about a week, but I could do it for perhaps 25 gold pieces.
Elin, how much gold do you have?
I have enough. How much do you have?
I only have 22 gold pieces. How much are Electrum worth again?
Electrum are each worth half a gold piece.
Half a gold.
But why don't you want to do you said 25.
Yeah.
You want to chip in the 10 and I'll do the 15?
Sure. Let's
Or you
chip
do
it
the
in.
yeah, you want to do that?
Let's split it. Yeah, 10, 15. You want to chip in the?
I'll do the 15.
Okay.
Sound good?
All right.
Alright, it sounds like we have an accord. If you have the money, and I assume you guys hand a bag off to him, he basically says, very well, come back here in about 7 days, sometime in the afternoon, and this should be done for you. Now, if you don't mind, I need to finish some work while my colleagues are doing their own experiments. It occurs to both of you that you still do have steaming mugs of vanilla and barley tea right in front of you, which you kind of forgot about.
We chug our tea and leave.
Quite hot.
Alright, then with that, leaving a good fistful of money and a bear rug behind, you guys turn to leave the Divinist Tower with nary a wave over your shoulder and nary a wave offered back, because the Divinist is going right back into his work. I trust that you can see yourselves out. Yes?
Yep.
Yeah, I would, yeah.
Good. And if I might be a little personal for a moment, do come back and take this, and do keep up the good work. I've been seeing some strange things recently, and, well, I think Brooksfort is going to need as many competent people as she can get her hands on in the days to come.
Strange things. What do you mean?
It isn't easy to explain to somebody who isn't also versed in divination magic. Suffice it to say, I can see in every single direction and moment at once at times, thanks to my spell casting, and Well, if I took the time to explain it to you, you'd probably think me mad. Suffice it to say that you should simply keep on doing what you're doing. And I think things will work out. And with that, he all of a sudden looks very self-conscious and begins to turn away from you, saying, "Take care." And it's at this point, from somewhere in the distance, you hear a faint, distant sound of... Hang on a second, another faint...
Another faint what?
Illusion.
Explosion?
An explosion.
Oh, I didn't hear.
So faint, he could hear it.
It's just from kind of off in the direction where you assume the High Evoker's tower is, you hear another faint boom of a fireball or something going off.
In Bram's mind, I meant like there's like a carton of milk, it just falls over.
I get that reference.
The
Okay,
inner
what do you
machinations of my mind are an enigma.
Well, I guess we better go meet up with everyone else.
Without looking back up from his work, the High Divinist says, "Yes, you go ahead and do that, and don't worry. If you need anything else, I'll be the first to know. Take care."
Keep that in mind.
Hi.
If you need anything, I'll be the first to know.
What the fuck? On my Steam, it says Clorox Bleach is playing a game. I'm like, what the fuck?
All right. Then, with both of your tasks done, you guys make it back to the front entrance hall of the Mages Guild, where you decided earlier you would meet up, basically to touch base and see who accomplished what. Bram and Elin both arrive, looking very kind of bemused, but otherwise okay, while Mordecai and Dave look haunted.
You guys look like you've seen a ghost.
We may as well have. Oh no! Wait! We saw something worse.
No comment.
Indubitably.
Oh, come on, you gotta tell us now.
Well, we saw a
Let me put it this way. The High Necromancer is very old and not
Yeah.
very inhibited.
she's a free spirit. Let's just leave it at that.
Like it's one thing to bed a widow of 50, but 150 is a bit much.
It's more like
Yeah.
850 with her.
Wow.
I was about to say.
So how'd it go with the cape carpet? Cape carpet.
Well, he saw us coming. We had magic
All right.
Diviner.
Always seems ahead.
and he's going to make a cape out of that bear rug.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah,
Bram's gonna be an overpowered hunk.
with that bear
Isn't
rug,
he
with that
already?
bear rug cape and that belt.
Oh, unstoppable. He's the stuff of legends right now.
With belt and
All
pelt.
I need is a shield.
I don't know, there's a joke there. Belts, pelts. Arthur will probably come
Belts
on
and
about that
pelts.
Oh, wait. With the belt and pelt, he'll make all of his enemies melt.
Nice.
Dave,
Yeah,
keep to your day job.
Well, this is my day job.